You know what the internet needed? A white guy, a blind white guy, talking about the new Good Times pilot on Netflix. So let's dive in. This is a review of Good Times, season 1, episode 1. I do pilot reviews, and I figured this was a worthy show to talk about. And it certainly has been promoted. I saw that they had a red carpet premiere for this, and obviously Netflix wants this to succeed. It has a nice little voice cast behind it. You know, we've got JB Smoove, Yvette Nicole Brown, Marseille Martin. I know how to say the girl from Blackish, but no, I know how to say her name. And who else is in this? There's some other people too. Jay Farrow. Did I say Jay Farrow? I don't think I said Jay Farrow. Anyway, yeah. So it's got a pretty solid voice cast, and it's one of those adult animated comedies that keeps popping up. Man, who knew? You know, when The Simpsons was happening, and then it spawned like Family Guy, and then we just kept rolling, just rolling out adult animated cartoons of this sort of ilk. Who knew how many there would actually end up being of this sort of thing, and how far we would end up going for how many years. But this is another one of them. I will say, but it's true of most sitcoms that came around from before the time I was born. I'm not really familiar with Good Times as a show, but I don't think this is like that. And in some ways, there's good and bad to that. There is the good in that when you do something that feels like it's trying to recapture the magic of the original show in such a way where it's trying to take like new actors and put them in the roles. Usually that doesn't really work. It just kind of leaves people missing the other thing that they had before. It's sort of the problem that we're having with that 90s show. They're not the original cast, but the format is so close to the original that it's really hard to not draw the comparison between the two shows, between that 70s show and that 90s show. Even Frasier's revival, it's Frasier, and yeah, he's kind of in a slightly different setting, but he's back in Boston where he was for Cheers, and it just kind of reminds you of Cheers and Frasier, and now he's in this show, and you're like, I don't know. Did we actually improve? Did they do anything better? Not really. But Good Times just feels like exactly the kind of shit we would make in 2024. They just slapped the name Good Times on it. This is just, I don't think this has any correlation at all to the series. I think the jokes, the humor that's being made here is there's a lot of it that is very 2024. Talking baby stuff, I feel like that absolutely was not something that they crossed in the Norman Lear days. And we have a talking baby that's out there selling drugs on the street or something like that. And I was trying to follow that plot. It was really ridiculous. And there was like a baby mafia in the pilot episode that tried to sell him off to a white lady. And I don't know. And he's always looking at boobs and because of milk, right? And lactating, and lots of references to stuff like that. And the jokes here are all very typical of shows like that. They're very atypical, very, very far from the kinds of Norman Lear jokes, who was already sort of pushing boundaries with his shows, especially with All in the Family, by having a lot of shows that weren't afraid to say and weren't afraid to do. But I still think that a lot of these things would have been too risque even for his time period. So it's funny how we've made the transition into, well, now how do we be groundbreaking? Now how do we push boundaries? Apparently this is it. Apparently this is the answer to that question. So it's a family. They're living in, not a great place, and we've got cockroaches. I swear there was like another show recently that opened up with like cockroaches. Was it Velma? And like the cockroaches were like having sex or something like that. Um, and this show opens almost the exact same way, and I was like, we can't keep doing this. We cannot keep doing this. Um, but it's just not funny. Like the joke isn't funny, and it's the fact that it's been done like multiple times with cockroach. It's just stop. Anyway, um, I think there's talent here, and I think there's potential. No one else does. This has a 4.1 on IMDb, so I don't know what's happening to this show, but I didn't watch a 4.1 show. I watched a show that is, it's we'll see. Um, Future episodes, the jokes are going to need to get better. It can't always be about, you know, lactating breast milk and the baby selling crack and cockroaches, and so, I mean, it's gotta grow from somewhere. Um, I think where adult animation has gone is to some really interesting places. I think about Young Love, which was on Max, and how well that told a story. And it wasn't trying to be uh, anything that came before it. It didn't feel like it came from the crude mind of Seth MacFarlane, which this kind of does. This feels more like it came from Seth MacFarlane's mind than it did Norman Lear's mind, because it follows a little bit more of what he set up with Family Guy and the crudeness to that than it does anything else. I mean, it has that vibe to it. But something like Young Love just kind of took characters and told their story and just told this honest portrayal of just black characters doing things, and all from their perspective, and it was funny and it was cute and it was heartwarming. It was a great show. Um, this is just like the kind of stuff that we see in this genre done to death. F is for Family, even a little bit of Big Mouth, honestly, when you get into the whole like little kids doing things that are really not appropriate for them to be doing. Yeah, it's just, anyway, but it's just gonna have to find its own footing and move forward. So after one episode, I'm gonna watch more. I think the 4.1 again is not earned. It's a I think it's a grade that's being brought down by haters of the internet, to be just totally honest. Audio description wise on the series, I'm a big proponent, I know, blind white guy, of the fact that we have a lot of audio description out there that often dodges race, and I do spend quite a bit of time talking with other blind people about audio description. I'm just the one that is willing to be on camera to talk about it. And representation still matters, and people do still like to hear and know them that they are represented. I know people like to hear themselves in the narration, but also they like to know that the characters on screen. And what can be really frustrating is a lot of times shows, for whatever reason, the distributors, the networks, the streamers send out these notices to the audio description companies to not describe any characters with any racially or ethnic specific um, tones, you know. So no character is Latina or Black or Asian or anything. It's just we have no characters. They have no. Everybody is just this. Not only are we blind, but we're colorblind. And everybody just exists in this one world of peace and harmony as one race for blind people, which is not the reality of sighted people. I know I used to be one. So you can see the representation, especially when it's intentional casting, when they're trying to show you across the board a diverse cast. That's really when it sticks the most in there, is when it's an intended diverse cast and it gets lost in translation. Are the times when it's really like, we should have done this, we should have been describing. A lot of times we do things like defaulting, where we don't tell people where, you know, that someone is white, but we'll tell them that somebody is not white. I hate that. Here we basically are doing that. I mean, basically it feels like that, because here's a series that's doing it right, but it's also a series with predominantly Black characters. So almost the entire cast is Black. So yeah, it lets you know, but at the same time, it's really sad, because I know that if this was a white cast, if this was a new show, this was like an animated All in the Family reboot, and let's just, for for argument's sake, say the Jeffersons don't jump in the first episode, and it's just all this white family. They're not going to tell me that they're a white family. You know, they're not going to tell me that the animated Archie is running into all these white people. They're just not going to do that. And it's problematic. It's unfortunate. And I appreciate what this show does, because this show is doing it the way it's supposed to happen. Like, it should happen. Because in every show you wouldn't necessarily know. Although this is pretty obvious, it is an animated adaptation of Good Times. So I think a lot of people will know what this is going into it, but maybe not. You know, maybe there are some younger people who don't know that there was a Good Times TV show, and they're clicking on this on Netflix. I wouldn't let kids watch this. It's got a little bit of adult subject matter in it, even more so than Family Guy. This is a little bit more up there. I know that we're letting our kids watch things younger and younger, but your kids should have 2 digits, I would say, bare minimum, before watching this. Let's at least agree on that. There should be 2 digits in your kid's age. Try to at least keep the ones under 10 away from this. This is just not really for them. I think representation matters. And something like Percy Jackson on Disney Plus just never mentioned any of it. They just had an incredibly diverse cast that was never mentioned on screen. They just let them all be like whatever you want them to be, which is not really, that's not the intention of the casting. That doesn't reflect the actors who are playing characters. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't help us at all. I know nothing about those characters from that. I mean, I know it from talking to other people about Percy Jackson, because a lot of people watch that series, but I know nothing about that from the audio description. Here, I do. So, I just need more audio description to be like this, regardless of whether or not the cast is predominantly Black. So, we can't just do it for the Black shows. We gotta do it for all shows. Anyway, I hope that made sense. I'm pretty okay on this. There's a lot of adult animation out there. We're getting a lot of it. It's just bombarding us. Seems to be an easy thing to make right now. But I'm thinking this is probably going to be okay. I think Netflix might stick with this. I mean, they gave that 90s show a second season, so I'm sure they'll give this another season. I'm sure it'll do okay. That 4.1 is maybe not really reflective of the actual quality of the series. Although, for people who have seen the original Good Times, I'd be a little bit more. If you were a huge fan of that, I'd be more interested to know what you think of the remake, because in some ways I respect it for being absolutely nothing like the original series, because it gives it more room to breathe, um, by setting that tone instead of feeling like it's trying to be a pale comparison. But maybe people were expecting the pale comparison. I don't know. Anyway, um, I'm gonna give Good Times a B plus. Believe it or not, I think it did a pretty good job of doing a pilot episode of letting me know what's up with the family, what's up with this group, and giving me a good idea of tone. Um, Sometimes I also, pilots can be rated a little bit higher than maybe the rest of the series, because I'm also sort of rewarding a pilot for doing the job it's supposed to be doing, which is letting me know what the series is. It's this thing that's specific to just the first episode. Is how are you representing the show? Do I understand what the show is? Am I going to be confused after the pilot? Do I not know? Do I not know who the lead is? Was it too confusing? Do I not, all those questions come only with the first episode. And I think with Good Times, it did a really good job of letting me know this is what's up. This is what we got. Okay. I'll watch more episodes. Thanks. Anyway, hopefully you click subscribe, and I will see you guys on the other side.